So this is my master class, lesson 29, Unstoppable Attackers. So the concept is the idea of pretty much having an attack that can obviously be used to win you the game that your opponent can't stop. Because the goal is to get to the point where you can finish the game, right? Get your last attack in. Because of course your opponent's not going to make it easy for you to deal them the last 2 damage necessary to win the game, or just, the killing blow. So you gotta find methods and strategies to overcome that, right? Because if your win con relies on attacking, then you need a way to have an unstoppable attack, right? An attack you can perform that your opponent can't stop, so that way you can just, get your win right there and then that you were working towards. There's a lot of other cards. Obviously, these are just some of the cards I picked to illustrate the concept. But there are other cards and strategies that, equal this concept, like, sell Zeno at the right time. That's definitely an unstoppable attacker, in the right situation. We have the most obvious one would be Android 17, Turning the Tide. That drastically increases your ability to attack and not have it stopped, right? But it's not perfect though, but it's definitely up there. Because I should have had Turning the Tide up here to illustrate the idea of what it does, what it can stop. Alright, so let's talk about the factors that you have to take into account when it comes to choosing an unstoppable attacker, or trying to develop the strategy of an unstoppable attacker, right? So the first thing would be counterattack, right? Because if your opponent can negate your attack, then your attack is not that unstoppable, right? So you need a way to stop that, right? You need a way to prevent your opponent from negating your attack. A couple ways, of course, is with a counter. So negate the counterattack. Make your opponent can't play a counterattack by playing cards that make it hard for them to use extra cards, because most, counterattacks are extra cards. There are some that are battle cards, so that's a thing. In the near future, we're going to have more. We have some right now, but we're going to have more. I could obviously see we're going to have more battle card negates that you can play for free. So we have some free counter plays. We have some free counter attacks, and then we're going to have free battle card negates. So that's going to be a thing we have to take into account, moving forward in this game. So we need to, if we're going to try to win through attacking, then we need to circumvent these things, right? So counter attack is one thing we got to deal with, because sparking negates was one of the first, type of negate that was problematic, of course, because the typical thing you did was like, if your opponent has an energy, clearly they can negate, but you always wait until they tapped out to go for game, where they couldn't, play a negate, but then they created sparking negates. So people now can tap out and not worry about not being able to defend themselves, being vulnerable to tapping out because they have sparking negates. Then, we had stuff like, battering laser at one time. So that was used to stop, negates and stuff, whether they were sparking or not. But they banned them, so we don't have access to that anymore. But now we have new stuff that can counter. They cost more, but we do have new stuff. We have, I just got my playset of, coolers, Swift retaliation cooler. So I got my playset of that. So I'll be, playing with that for a bit in my yellow decks. And then 5-drop Golden Avenger Ape, which I still don't have, but that's a counter right there. So we have a couple cards that we can use to stop counterattacks. But it'd be nice if we didn't have to try to stop the counterattack. It'd be nice to prevent it, right? To avoid it. So the next thing is blockers. More players are playing blockers, more archetypes are incorporating free blockers and blockers that have barrier and so forth and so forth. So you got to overcome blockers. So those are the two steps we got to, of just stopping our attacks. We got to overcome, which is counterattacks and blockers. The next thing, which is the most generic thing, because it can just happen depending on the matchup, it can just happen at any given time, is your opponent having a bigger hand size than you. So the fact that they can out combo your attack, even if you manage to get your attack through, even if you could bypass the fact that they have a counterattack, the fact that they have a blocker, even if you pass those two defenses, your opponent can still use their hand to defend themselves. So that's the third thing you gotta worry about and overcome. And it depends on the matchup. That's either easier or harder, right? And then the fourth thing will be active battle effects or KO on your turn effects, like charismatic villain freeze or something like that, or an arrival play, or just an active battle play, or a leader that has an active battle ability that can KO the card you're attacking with. That's where playing battle cards that have barrier comes into play. Let me show some examples. As you can see, this King Piccolo 5 seconds to eradication has both deflect and barrier, so that deflect protects it from counter plays. So that's one thing we don't gotta worry about as much. But a lot of times you don't have to worry about that as much as you have to worry about like a effect that KOs a battle card. So that's where the barrier comes in more importantly than deflect. So barrier is more important than deflect, because more likely whatever counters your play is more likely going to be something that costs your opponent something, or they have to set up for it. While things that KO won't cost your opponent much of anything, because it probably is just an inherent ability of either a leader, battle card or something like that, or an extra card or something, and it's usually going to be low cost, so it won't take too much to set up, and it won't cost too much to play, right? So that's where the barrier comes in. Plus, barrier is useful just in many other uses, but the main thing is you want your finisher, right, your attacker, to be protected, and that's where the barrier will come in. Double strike, of course, because usually your opponent will be two life or less, and typically there'll be a 2 life, so you want to make sure all your attackers have at least a minimum of double strike. Triple strike, quadruple strike, even better, right? The ability to dual attack, to be able to attack more than once. This here is triple strike, so we'll get into that concept soon. But as you can see, barrier, the usefulness of barrier. You see, this thing has the effect that if your leader card is red, your opponent can't activate blocker skills in response to this card's attack. So this already, one has the double strike, which you want, so it definitely can, KO your opponent with that. Plus, it has the barrier, so it already bypasses the active battle a factor you have to take into account. It bypasses the blocker, so there's that. So the only things left will be the hand size out comboing super combo scenario and the counter attack, right? Interesting enough, it does have a auto that you add 1 card from your life to your hand, and when this card's attack is negated, through like a counter attack, you deal your opponent 1 damage, which is obviously decent. If this thing had dual attack, or if you have a way to give it dual attack, so keep that in mind, a way to give it dual attack, then that would be extra awesome, because even if they negate the first attack, just restand it, attack again, right? And try again to go for game. The fact that it at least has some way of still doing some damage, so technically it's bypassing the negate in that regard. So it's a really good card, which is why I've been looking at it. And I do have the card, and I do own the card, so definitely going to put it to work. So it checks essentially 3 of the 4 factors I need to take to account. Plus, it has the added benefit of, you know, deflect. So it's almost perfect, right, in a way. We got this big boy right here, Ultimate Spirit Bomb Goku. He has, you know, double strike, which is important. He has a permanent. Your opponent can't activate counter against this card's attack, so they can't counter attack it. So that right there, one thing it can bypass. Auto, when this card attacks, choose up to 5 battle cards in your energy and combo with them. So if you do a lot of 5K combo, a lot of 10K combo, then you can get this up to 75K power if you use 5 battle cards with 10K combo power. So you can make this a 75K attacker, which will drastically make it hard for your opponent to out combo it. So their hand size would not to be much of a factor. So that takes care of the hand size problem. It takes care of the counterattack problem. But we still have the blocker and the active battle, you know, KO problem. So we still have 2 of the 4 problems. But we are in a better position because as long as you make sure your opponent doesn't have a blocker, as long as you make sure pretty much your opponent doesn't have a way to, you know, don't have a green unison for a charismatic villain Frieza play, or they don't have a leader or energy at all to even trigger some active battle, you have reduced it to your opponent just needs you reduce it to a point where blocker is the only thing your opponent can do against this card. So that you're drastically leaning way more into the unstoppable attack aspect. So, you know, really good card. Definitely been looking into this. Bought me a play set. So I'm definitely going to be playing with this in future blue deck builds. There's obviously other good cards. Already have Android 17, so that's a no-brainer right there of how good that card is. Because that right there already can anti hand size, right? Can anti counterattacks because your opponent has no negates in the hands to counterattack. To counterattack, so that right there takes care of 2 factors. And all you have to do is make sure your opponent doesn't have a blocker, and their leader or none of their battle cards in play has a active battle ability. And you know, and Android 17, you know, pretty much will be an unstoppable. He definitely checks a lot of these factors, so that's why he's a Android 17 is a no-brainer, which is why I quickly bought me a playset. You know, when he first was available, definitely didn't hesitate because he's that boy good. But I'm a Goku fan, so I'm trying to find some decent Gokus that can fit the criteria of a unstoppable attacker or finisher, whatever you want to call it. So moving on, we have Super 17, the Infernal Machine. He has double strike, of course, right? First permanent, this card's attack cannot be negated, which is nice. Because it doesn't say counter attack, it just can't be negated. So what's extra about that, see, the difference between this card, this says your opponent can't activate counter against this card's attack. So they can't counter attack it. But they could still use a skill that can negate this card's attack. So that's still a thing. But typically when it comes to attacks being negated, it's usually through a counter attack. But this specifically says its attack can't be negated, you know, which is really good against any unisons or leaders that have the effect to negate an attack. You know, so this is good against that. So that's something to keep in mind. It's 20k. Does have an effect. Auto, when you play this card, you may choose 2 cards in your opponent's hand and place them into the drop area. If you do, your opponent... Wait, I said it wrong. When you play this card, you may choose 2 cards in your hand, place them to the drop area. Then, if you did that, your opponent chooses 2 cards from the hand and places them in the drop area. So this has the potential to, one, it does the hand size thing, right? You're reducing combo power for your opponent's hand, so you're reducing the possibility of your opponent out comboing this card's attack. then its attack can't be negated. So that would, so then all that's left will be a blocker and an active battle / KO effect that you have to worry about. So if you play the game right, you should make sure there is no blocker and make sure there is no potential active battle play against you, right? So these are the types of things you're trying to look into, because you greatly increase your chances if you make sure there's no blockers and your opponent can't negate. That drastically increases your attacks. Your ability to have an unstoppable attack. Everything else is just formalities, right? Then we got Jiren, Universe's Strongest. I definitely experienced this bad boy once. It was so epic, right? This was on Untap. My opponent played this and swung with it. I had no choice but to take it. I couldn't stop this. Then after this, bad boy swung at me. Then my opponent Cell Zeno'd me. So imagine that, right? To have this bad boy come at me and then get Cell Zeno'd. So I got Jiren, then Cell Zeno'd. And I survived that turn. I didn't win the match. It was my turn. I was like, not much I could do. And then my turn, the game was over. But the point is, at least I survived the turn. That was the important part. Because that was crazy to have that much. Have this bad boy and Cell Zeno all in the same turn. So that was epic. He has Deflect, which is nice to have. Quadruple Strike, really good. Double Strike would be enough, but Quadruple Strike, not against it. The sooner you can play him out, the better, right? He has the permanent where, if you have 9 or more University 11 in your drop area, reduce this card's cost by 6, so he'll be a specified 6 yellow energy. And then second permanent during battles, when this card attacks, your opponent may not, his interest says may not, activate counter or blocker. Pretty much you attack, your opponent can't counter or block this card. So they can't counterattack it, they can't block it. So that takes care of the first two factors. But it has Deflect, so you can kind of say that takes care of the whole, KO in your turn type of factor. But you still have to deal with, an active battle ability that can KO him when he attacks. You still have to worry about your opponent's hand size. But he has 40k, so that does drastically reduce the capability of your opponent out combo him, because here he starts off with as a 40k. All you have to do is just increase his attack beyond that. Go 60k and above, and that will take care of the combo part. So he almost checks all 4 of the factors you have to overcome in order for his attack to be unstoppable. Then we have this leader, which is interesting. I'll definitely be playing around with this leader in the future. Permanent, when your opponent has 4 or more battle cards in play, this card's attack can't be negated. See, that sounds awesome, right? His attack can't be negated. So that's very important. Not counterattack, just not negated. So that's really useful. Very powerful. So it's already going unstoppable, right? Auto, when this card attacks, draw a card, and it gets 5k power for the duration of turn. So that little extra 5 boost does help with the hand size situation, right? The counter thing. The combo thing. And then second auto, when this card attacks, if your opponent has 4 or more battle cards in play, this card gains quadruple strike for the duration of the turn. So of course, it's going to become 20k. You're going to draw, so that's always good. That's increasing your hand size and your ability to combo, make this attack even stronger. It already, it can make it where your opponent can't negate its attack. So all you have to do is make sure they don't have a blocker. Because it's a leader, you don't have to worry about the active battle KO effects, right? So that checks the 4, that checks the 1, and then because you're gaining some hand advantage, and hopefully your hand is thicker than your opponent, right? You're checking off the third factor, so you just have to worry about a blocker, which shouldn't be too hard, because by the time you decide to make this attack, your opponent probably doesn't have a blocker. Therefore, that will check all 4 factors you have to overcome in order for this attack to be unstoppable. That's pretty cool. So goes attack, Super Saiyan 3, go tanks. A lot of times just going wide. The more attacks you have, the better. So this will definitely give you 3 extra attacks just by playing it. Plus, if you have 4 or less cards in your hands, this card plus the tokens will have double strike. That's potential 8 damage there. That drastically increases the chances of your attacks getting through. Especially if your opponent has a low hand size, he can help you get past blockers just because you have 4 attacks. It's not too different from a Boonie, it's just a double strike factor doesn't matter. Because even if your opponent can stop 3 of your 4 double strike attacks, if just one goes through, bang, right? So essentially he kind of is an unstoppable attacker just because of the fact that just with this one card he easily goes wide. Similar to a Boonie, but a Boonie doesn't have the double strike factor, but he still counts. You can kind of look at this as a quadruple attacker, because you got 4 attacks off of one card. So he definitely checks the ability to bypass the counterattack. Bypassing counterattack is not just not being able to be negated, but making it where it's pointless. Even if your opponent negates, you're still going to get attacked, right? So that's where the dual attack I was mentioning earlier will come into a factor. Attacking more than once increases your ability to check off the counter attack factor, because just one negate is not enough to stop you, right? So if you can attack more than once, then your opponent's going to need multiple negates. So let's say your opponent has 1 blocker, 1 negate, but you have 3 attacks, right? Well, they can stop 2 of your attacks, but the 3rd one will still go through. So the idea is, you're trying to get to a point where you have an attack getting through. You're always trying to bypass. You're always trying to get to the combo step, right? The combo step of your attack. So you're always trying to find a way to get to that point where you're going for game, right? Where there's no blockers, there's no negate. Right now you're comboing for game, and hopefully you can combo more than your opponent and you win, right? So you're trying to get to that point. So this definitely can check those out. Interesting enough, of course, he has no protection, so if your opponent has a way to KO him, so that way him and the tokens lose, well, one, he'll be gone, and if he's gone, the tokens lose the double strike. So that right there, it's weakness for it. But you still have multiple attackers, so hopefully 2 of them get through and win you the game. Again, because you're going wide with one card, having your opponent having a blocker is irrelevant, because it can stop 1 attack, but not all of them, right? Unless they have a blocker they block multiple times, then that increases their survival rate. But the idea is to try to bypass the defense. The idea is to get through the defense, right? Obviously. So we got 4 factors of protection, defense your opponent's going to have, and you have to try to bypass. That's what makes it an unstoppable attack, right? So yeah. Oops. So there's that factor. Triple attack, 3 chances. You get 3 chances for your attack to try to go through. Especially this card's overwhelmed, so you can obviously splash this in a lot of different decks. He does have the useful permanent of your opponent can't activate skills unless they choose 1 card from the hand and set it to their warp. And from what I've heard, blocker skill triggers this. That could be wrong, but I've been hearing that pop up once in a while, of the fact that if somebody triggers blocker, they have to warp a card from this. So we'll see more about that later. I'll double check that. But the main thing is that this will make it hard. This will check the hand size factor. That permanent will check the hand size factor. It having 3 attacks will help you with the blocker and counterattack scenario. Unless the blocker has revenge, keep that in mind. Your opponent has to have a blocker with revenge. If your opponent has a regular blocker, then that's why you dual attack, triple attack, quadruple attack, whatever, right? The more attacks you get, the better. or play something that's a unison or a leader, so that way revenge is pointless. But ultimately, you want when it comes to battle cards, you want them to have dual attack, of course, because that will help you bypass blockers and counterattacks. So that's going to be the more common thing that I'm looking for. I'm looking for dual attackers. As you can see, there's a good variety here. Some are black, so obviously they're splashable, so you can tech them into different decks and definitely have the dual attack ability. So this card is pretty cool because it has dual attack, right? It has overwhelm 6, so it's good, easy to get out. 25k power is a good stat to start off with. It has dual attack, so that will help you with the counterattack and the blocker situation. It has no protection, so active battle / KO effects will still be a factor you have to overcome. And he does have a active battle ability. We pay 1 black energy. This card gets 10k power and double strike for the battle. So notice that it's 1 black active battle for the effect. So it's not once per turn. So the more black you play, the more 10k you can add to his power. So that helps you with the hand size situation. So that will help you with the hand size situation. The double strike will help you obviously clutch out the game. Being dual attack will help you bypass the counter attacks and the blockers. So this is checking a lot of things. Well, at least it checks the counter attack, the blocker, and the hand size situation. It's the active battle and KO effects that you still got to worry about. But if you play your card, you play the game right, that shouldn't be much of a problem, right? And you can get this bad boy to finish the game for you. So that's another unstoppable attacker if you use him right. Merchram, he has barrier, so that will help him with the active battle and KO effect factor you have to take into account. And then of course double strike, obviously, to go for game. He has an active main where once per turn you reveal the top card of your opponent's deck. If it's a battle card, he has a 5k boost and dual attack. So the 5k boost helps you with the hand size situation. So it checks that. So you check 3 and 4 factors. The fact that he'll get dual attack more often than not, that will help you deal with the counter attack and blocker situation. And you'll be trying to reduce it. You want to make sure your opponent doesn't have a blocker. You want to make sure your opponent maybe can't play a negate. But since counterattacks, there's more, like I mentioned at the beginning of the video, there's going to be more free negates. Like whether they be extra card negates or battle card negates, it's going to be more free ones. So we have to take into account that those will be available. Just like we've been having free blockers. Like I bought Napa Leader plus 8 Cybermen's because I'm gonna play around with that because of the fact that he literally plays a free blocker every turn. So that right there, free defense. Put up a free blocker. So that way I can just go in, aggro on my opponent. Go in hard attacking, and then for free put up a defense, a blocker on top of whatever defense I have, like negates, right? So as you can see, it's getting easier to put up, blockers, attackers, active battle effects, right? Large hand size. These things are getting easier, which means it's getting harder to finish the game through an attack, which is why we're trying to focus on ways to make unstoppable attackers. Look for cards that drastically reduces these 4 factors you got to take into account to increase your win rates, right? We're trying to win, so that's where we have to analyze and figure out solutions to these problems. Digging deep, just here more for an honorable mention, just because the fact that it's a low cost card. So a lot of these cards have high costs, or they have ways to be played for cheap, which is always nice. This was just a low cost dual attack, basically, because it has an effect you could trigger to give it to restand it. Plus, it gets a power boost on top of that. You can add up to 2 cards from your life to your hand. Therefore, that increases your hand size, which helps you with the super combo / hand size factor you have to overcome. The fact that it can, essentially you can make it attack twice. That can help you with the blocker and counterattack situation. But it doesn't have barrier, so the active battle effects and KO effects are still a factor. But it checks at least 3 out of 4, so it goes in that situation. Being an unstoppable attacker. And then, of course, to add to it is the fact that it's low cost. That means if you have 1 energy available, you can just, Champa or Supreme Kai it to get its attack high, plus, get that double strike to go through. Then we got Mirror Creative Absorb. Has Deflect, which is useful. It base power 30k, so it already helps you deal with the whole hand size situation, because it's already a high attacker. Because it attacking your opponent's leader, your opponent needs 20 combo power to stop it from attacking your opponent's leader while it's on the awakened side. So they already need 20 combo power against this automatically. So that's already helping with that. Then the fact that this can get stronger than that, because when it attacks, this card gets 5k power for each card in your work for the duration of the turn. So, and it overruns 4. So if you have at least 4 cards in your warp, that's an extra 20k. So he's 50k, which already is going to force your opponent to require 40k or more. Yeah, no, 40k. It's going to require your opponent to require 40 combo power. Essentially 4 super combos just to try to out combo this card's attack. So the likelihood of having 4 super combos at the same time is not highly likely. Possible, not highly likely, right? And that's just without you even comboing. So already it's helping you drastically with the super combo hand size situation. Then all you have to do is obviously avoid counterattack, blocker, and the active battle thing. Doesn't have protection other than deflect. If it had barrier, it would have more protection. But at least it checks 1 in particular thing, which is the super combo thing. All you have to do is just avoid blockers, counterattacks. The fact that he's overwhelmed for 1, if you have yellow energy, you could play a counter Swift Retaliation Cooler and combine it with him, so that way it increases the chance of his attack, being unstoppable as it were, right? Playing any other card that can get rid of a blocker that might be in your way. Of course, to get it to do more than 1 damage, Supreme Kai Champa to throw in there to get that final attack. This is just, a classic card of, an attack that's, if you meet the right requirements. So normally you just make sure your opponent has no blockers, your opponent's tapped out, right? And then you just swing with it, Champa, combo your hand off, and just bang. Pretty much an unstoppable attacker. And he has put in a lot of work before. I own it, so of course I have this card. Plus I have Fu Dark Vanisher, I have Merchuram, I have this, I have this. I actually own him, ironically. I ordered him, so I own this. I own this, I own this, I own this. I own a lot of these, it's just except for this one, because this is a new card I don't have yet. And I don't have this leader yet. And I don't have Super something, but I have everything else here, obviously, right? So a lot of unstoppables. This, as you can see, it's pretty much the same as the Mirror Creative Absorb. That's why I have it here, because of the fact that when you trigger his active battle, -2 ability for each card in your warp, this card gets 5k power for the battle. His base power is 15, which is half of the mirror, but he has the added ability, right? Benefits, that he's a unison. Therefore, he's immune to active battle effects. because most active battle effects affects battle cards. So he's on the same category as the leader. So leaders and unisons are pretty much immune to active battle and KO effects like revenge and stuff like that. So revenge block would be useless, right? So we can already bypass that KO effects. So that's one factor we already got taken care of. The hand factor, the fact that this gets 5k for every one of your cards in your warp, that already can help you bypass the hand size factor. So that's two factors right there. And all you have to do is make sure your opponent doesn't have a blocker, can't counter attack. That greatly increases the chances of the attack going through. And all you have to do is, give it a double strike. So now you can go for game. So it works. It's a lot like, obviously Mirror Creative Absorb. It's just that it has the added benefits of the protection from KO effects. And now we're going into the unisons because, they definitely help you with being unstoppable, right? Because you don't have to worry about Gasoline Trunks, or you don't have to worry about counterplays or any type of counterplay. You don't have to worry about active battle effects or revenge blockers, things of that nature. You don't have to worry about these cards leaving the field anytime soon, especially during battle, right? During the time you want them to still be on the field. So this card has a -5 ability, so pretty much you'll want to pay 6 to play this, and then -5, so it's one marker, and then do its active main. This card gets 15k power, double strike, and dual attack for the turn. So it'll be a 30k, which is very important, right? 30k with double strike, that way you can deal the last 2 damage to win the game, right? And dual attack, which will help you against blocker, counter attack. The fact that he'll start off 30k, not to mention the fact you still can combo when you attack with it, so that will greatly help you with the hand size factor, and the fact that it's a unison. It's pretty much immune to active battle KO effects. So it pretty much almost it pretty much checks a lot of all 4 of the factors in that regard. So you definitely want to take this card to account, or any card that does similar. Anything that can become 30k double strike and dual attack is definitely a must-have. Then we have Baby Resolute Avenger. He has a -2 ability. If your leader card shall choose up to one of your mono yellow battle cards with an entry cost 5 or less and switch attack mode. This is very useful if you have a battle card, mono yellow battle card 5 or less that already can attack twice. They use this to give it an extra attack. Or let's say it doesn't have that ability. Let's just say, it can only attack once, but it has barrier and double strike and that kind of stuff. It's and it has a way of power boosting itself. Then it's pretty good. It checks a lot of things. And then but your opponent can still negate its attack, right? Or block it. Well, if they do, right, that's fine. If they block it or negate the card's attack, all right, you just play this. -2, restand the card and try again, right? That extra attack. This essentially gives something, yellow, 5 cost or less, yellow battle card, dual attack essentially, right? The ability to attack again. In other words, essentially making this attack unstoppable. And that's the whole point. You want to be able to get an extra chance of swinging for game by playing things that have dual attack and it's the best we can do. I mean, we would love things to just say your opponent can't counter or negate or block. We love those. Obviously, we're fans of those. But in the meantime, until we get more of that stuff, attackers that your opponent can't stop at all, which would be too much, right, for the game. That would just be OP. But we can use stuff like dual attack as a way to circumvent blockers, counterattack, stuff like that, and greatly increase our chances of dealing the killing blow, which allows us to have our unstoppable attack, right? And this is pretty much the same thing. Depending on how you use this, dual, it's 20k good base. It's dual attack, so you get 2 chances of being able to deal your opponent damage, so that helps you with blockers and counter attacks. But it also has a -3 ability that lets you get rid of up to 2 of your opponent's battle cards, ignore and bury and place them at the opponent's bottom deck. So that right there can already help you with blockers. So that right there can get rid of blockers. So that checks the blocker thing. It being a dual attack helps you with the counter attack thing, as well as blocker as well. It'll apply for that as well. It being a unison, it helps you check the active battle KO effect type stuff. And the fact that it has the -2 ability, granted you can't use these two things together, but you can only use one or the other, one of these unison effects, either the first one or the second one. But it does have the -2 draw 2 card thing, so that does help you increase your hand size, which can help you out hand size your opponent, so that can help you with the hand size situation. So this card definitely, helps you, pretty much does check all 4 of the 4 factors you have to take to account for an unstoppable attacker, and he's awesome. Definitely one of my favorites. Unisons is definitely my go-to. He's a staple in all my blue decks because he does so much, and as you can see, he's essentially an unstoppable attacker. Him along with the card, the leader, the blue Vegeta leader, with the awakened side, it gives blue unison triple strike and 10k boost. Combine that leader with this card back, just too good all day, every day. And that's the end of the video.